The Pro Show is brought to you by Rockin Media and our proprietary Flash HDR photo process, providing you with the best, most realistic photos of your property. See the difference at rockinmedia.com. Hey everyone, coming up on the Pro Show, we have a new agent from Vail who's going to be letting us know what's going on up in the high country. Carrie will get us up to speed on northern Colorado. In addition to that, Nancy will talk about conventional mortgages. Greg will talk about the rental market. And we'll also be discussing whether this is a good time to buy, and if so, why. And finally, we'll talk about disclosures like lead paint disclosure and square footage disclosure and how those can trip you up when you're trying to sell. All next on The Pro Show. And today we have a special guest with us. Well, she's special in that she's new to the show. This is Diana Meehan. She's up at Coldwell Banker Mountain Properties up in Vail. And welcome, Diana.
Thank you very much.
Tell us a little bit about yourself.
I've been in the market here for a very long time, over 35 years, and mostly with Coldwell Banker. And we are now with Coldwell Banker Mountain Properties in West Vail and have been here for over 5 years now in this location. It's a great, beautiful office. I've been very active in the entire market for, our market's only 40 miles long, so
yeah,
we're active in the entire market.
How long you been in real estate?
About 37 years.
37 years. See, these are the pros. This is why she's on the show, because we'd love her to have this experience as part of our conversation, and hopefully she'll be able to join us frequently. And we also have Carrie Holmes from northern Colorado, not northern metro area, northern Colorado. Hi, Carrie. Welcome again.
Hi, Rick.
How's your week been? Oh, you were on vacation.
I did sneak off, so yes, I did, but I'm back in the swing of things, and fortunately, us realtors, we do have a team behind us that helps us, so in case we're not physically here, we still keep that ball rolling for our clients.
That's awesome. Well, welcome both of you, and let's get started. Because we have Carrie up in northern Colorado and Diana over in Vail, we're going to start in Vail and tell us what's going on in the market over in Vail.
We continue to have very low inventory. In the Vail Valley, our valley is 40 miles long. Vail is the eastern, that's one of our ski resorts. And then in that market itself, it's very different because it's kind of the engine that runs the train for the whole valley. And they're the highest prices and the lowest inventory. So like in our home market, we only have 150 properties that are for sale.
And I see you have inexpensive ones. Like we're looking at Realtor.com, and it looks like you have one for 11.4. Can I get two?
Yes.
Oh, here's one for $42 million. Oh, awesome.
Yeah, the $42 million one is pretty amazing. That's right on the mountain. That's ski in, ski out. It's huge, and it's absolutely phenomenal.
And what's your price per square foot, your average or median, whichever one?
In Vail itself, it's really interesting because the Vail Village,
right,
which is the small area, they go from 3,000 up for new construction and older construction because there are still some of those 1970 homes.
Right.
They're 2,000 to 2,500 a square foot. That's in the town of Vail itself.
Okay. And
the market, we have all these little mini markets because from each little town as you go down valley, each little one is a different price per square foot. The further away that you get from the ski mountain, the more you get for your money. And so like Eagle is 300 to 550 a square foot.
Okay.
Big difference.
And in western Colorado or eastern Colorado terms, Down Valley is further west, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
That's correct.
So it's opposite of here. We're Down Valley, we head east. So looks like you have some great properties for sale up there right now. Only 6 pages, so that's a lot fewer, but they are awesome. And what's your days on market? Is it fairly reasonable right now?
The days on market, as far as the entire valley, is about 150 days on the market. But like I said, each area is a different price point. Some of those days on the market are being skewed because we have several very big new construction projects.
Sure.
And of course, they're on the market longer.
Gotcha. Well, that's really awesome, and hopefully we can take a look at some of these. We might just pop in on some of these so we get to look at this awesome architecture up there in Vail that's for sale. Let's hop over, and while I jump over to Coldwell Banker Homes, Carrie, tell me about Northern Colorado. What's going on up there, say year over year?
Thank you, Rick. So yes, actually our inventory is up 27.3% year over year. And our actual median price is down 4.5% per year. And so what that translates is it's actually a great time to buy out here. Our average days on markets are up as well. So that typically has the sellers a little bit more incentivized to negotiate. So if you're thinking about getting into the market, it's actually a really great time here in Northern Colorado.
Awesome. And do you have you said average price is down. What is it right now?
So right now, our average median price year over year is $589,900.
Sold, correct?
And that's for single family homes. And right now, I'm just giving you a snapshot for Fort Collins.
Okay.
As you know, Rick, I do work Northern Colorado, which does include Greeley, basically north of Longmont. But this snapshot is specifically for Fort Collins and the surrounding area.
Well, that's awesome, and sounds like we're getting into quite a balanced market out there. Would you agree?
Absolutely. And just for a case in point, our average days on market is about 60 days on market, compared to up there in the Vail Valley. So,
which isn't bad. I used the analogy, I think, on a previous show that the issue with 60 days on market is we were like 60 minutes on market there for a couple of years. And so it's like when you get off of the freeway after going 75 between Fort Collins and Denver, and all of a sudden you're on a side street going 20 and it feels like you're going backwards. Whereas if all you did was drive 20-mile-an-hour streets, you'd feel it's fine. And so we're back to kind of a normal market, at least down here on the Front Range. So that's great to hear.
And historically, it's about 3 months on market is a balanced market. So you're right. It's just that re-education process for our sellers. And as you know, I've been doing this 20 years. So, I remember the old days when you would take a listing and it was, 6-9 months and you just prayed it sold during that time. So you're absolutely right. 60 days on market is not a significant amount of time.
Right.
But yes, it's a re-education process for sure.
Showing your property at its best online is one of the first of many important steps to getting your home sold. At Rockin Media, we provide you with the best quality photos taken by staff photographers, not contractors, who process your photos individually. We use our proprietary Flash HDR process, which combines the natural look of HDR with the color accuracy of Flash, along with properly exposed windows. Rockin Media's HDR process is clearly exceptional. Find out more and schedule online at rockinmedia.com. So one of the decisions that you need to make is this the right time to buy versus some other time? And so we're going to have a discussion about that. And Carrie already kind of previewed this for Northern Colorado, but why is this a good time to buy, Carrie, other than obviously we've got more inventory on the market?
Well, we definitely have more inventory, but sellers that are listed right now are probably a little bit more motivated to sell as we enter the holiday season. People that have their home on the market are looking to liquidate. Otherwise, you have those sellers that are a little more kind of in a wait and see mode. Well, I'll throw it on in spring kind of thing, see what happens. But the sellers that are out there now do want to make a move. So that gives you a little bit more negotiating room and power as a buyer. Plus, there's definitely more inventory, like we had mentioned, which gives you more choice at this point, which just more to look at from a home buyer's perspective.
So, Diana, tell us, how does it work up in Vail, in the Vail Valley, relative to, it seems like it's always a good time to buy up there, but maybe not.
I think we have been, ever since COVID, have been so tight on the market, there's just not that much inventory. And I think what's happening now, as far as a great time to buy, is that our inventory is up significantly. And a lot of that is I'm seeing in the areas of, like, there's Vail, then there's Avon, then Eagle, and then there's Gypsum, and that's the whole valley. And that Eagle Gypsum area does have a lot more inventory because there's more space to build.
Okay.
That's where the great buys are, I believe, as far as getting into the market. So and get a foothold in the market,
So is it a good time to build or a good time to buy new builds? Which is it at this point, or both?
I think it's both. I think there's more new build to buy that are great buys to get your foot into this market. And, we're all of our markets are really not that far away. We're a mountain community, so between one end of the market and the other end of the market, it's only 30 minutes. So it's a pretty good time. You can get into the market and have some beautiful new properties.
Well, part of the decision, too, is selling. Is it a good time to sell then, Diana?
Yes, it totally is a good time to sell. The market, all the prices are up year over year. You'll see on the price per square foot, they've all gone up at least 10%. So it's a great time to be selling. But there are obviously places in the market that are going to be great for buyers too.
Okay.
It's a good time.
And Carrie, obviously the market is a little softer relative to the price if you're looking to sell, but why is that not a good time to sell? Because, do you see it going up in the near term, or obviously interest rates may impact it too?
Jump into that.
Okay, sure.
Before we jump into that, we are opposite of Diana. Now is not a good time to build brand new construction, say perhaps a custom home, unless you're looking for something that's just right, that just fits a niche that you need, strictly because our construction costs are quite high right now. And that's just materials, contractors, etc. So actually resale is the more cost-effective way to purchase, unless you're looking to buy with a production builder perhaps that's building spec homes, and then they have built this inventory. Spec home as they built it with the anticipation of selling it down the road, and I think we've talked about that in past shows, Rick. Mm-hmm. But those do give us an opportunity with a little bit more negotiating room than we've seen in the past. So there is an opportunity. If you love new construction, that's definitely a place to look. We're looking more in suburbs and the outer sides of Fort Collins to get that new construction, because we still have land to build out there. But from building a custom home from scratch, it wouldn't be the first thing I would recommend in this market, just because I think there's value to be had elsewhere.
And you have more inventory, so you have more to look for. And so there might be your dream home out there that you might not have been able to even see a few years ago just because it wasn't available, right?
Absolutely. that gem might have not even been on the market. And it's kind of a trickle up effect as well, because, the seller that puts his home on the market, he doesn't want to sell unless he has a place to go. So I am seeing more of that now, that transition buyer and seller, whether they're going to downsize. Now they have an opportunity to find that replacement property. Whereas before, it was such a crazy market that we missed those home buyers and sellers that were in the I'm going to stay put kind of situation, and see how things play out. So we do have that opportunity now, which has really opened up the buyer market and seller market both.
Yeah, I heard a lot of people saying, well, if I sold, where would I go? Back in those days. And now, and of course, it seems like even, with inventory up, Diana, in Vail, people can take a little time to find their right home, right?
It depends on which part you're working on. If you're buying right in the ski resort, you have to jump.
Okay.
Because the ski resort like Vail, Beaver Creek, Arrowhead, there are small little areas of the valley. And if somebody wants that particular place, they're going to have to jump on it because there's not much on the market. But going further down to the west, it's really good. You can take a look, figure out what you want, and then be ready when that thing comes on the market. And we're not finding, actually, if it's priced really well, we're still seeing multiple offers if it's priced really well.
Okay. And are you seeing a lot of Airbnb inventory being sold? People who bought for Airbnb and now they're unloading them, or not? I've heard that maybe in Summit, but I didn't know whether it was going in Eagle County.
Oh, I've had this conversation with a buyer who was here looking at Summit and looking here.
Okay.
And we are not so tied into restrictions on short-term rentals.
Okay.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yes.
Airbnb.
Sorry.
There are areas that have restrictions on it, but not as a general situation like there is in Summit. So a lot of people if they're looking for that particular thing, then our market is really good for that.
Carrie, you were going to say something too?
Well, believe it or not, here in Fort Collins, we do have restrictions on short-term rentals. So I don't know if that's becoming the wave of the future, but your property does have to be zoned in a specific area. So if you're thinking, I'm going to buy a rental property and put it in a short-term rental pool, be sure and get with your realtor and confirm that that property does qualify for that, so you can be mindful on the onset, because even here in little old Fort Collins, we do have a restriction.
And Diana, yeah.
I think that's really true. That's one great reason to use your realtor, because they will know, like when in our little valley, there are pockets, in the town of Avon, you can short-term rent only in the core, not outside of the core. And that's a map situation. And you'll find that in different places as you go up and down the valley. So it's very important to have your realtor.
And what about, obviously it probably makes sense to look at buying now, probably not so much for Diana's market, but in northern Colorado because the interest rates have come down, right?
They have, and that has just been a motivator in the market. It's definitely making properties more affordable. And I think people forget that where the current interest rates are, it's quite low relative to historically what we've seen in the past. So I know we had some crazy low interest rates there the last couple of years, but I think you pointed it out. We're in a more normal market, Rick, and so this is frankly what it should be. Things were getting a little too crazy one way and another, which isn't good for the overall market. So here we are at what I would say is a normal and yet competitive interest rate. So it does make things affordable now.
I think people tend to forget the reason they were so low was we were all stuck in our homes and wearing masks when we went out. So I'll take a little bit higher interest rates and not have to do that. What percentage?
Absolutely.
What percentage of your buyers are cash buyers up there, Diana? Are most of them, or is it mixed? Not
I think the majority will be cash buyers in one way or another.
okay.
But with great interest rates too. Like, our interest rates are the same as yours, Carrie. Except for, I mean, for the most part, they are.
Yeah.
We really don't have like, I think I'm 90, they're still 90%. You guys have a lot of 95%. I don't know exactly what your interest rates are as far as you have to put down, but it's pretty much the same everywhere. If somebody was buying specifically as a second home, they can get the same interest rates as you can get for your regular home.
Right.
If it's going to be an investment property, you're going to have to pay a higher interest rate.
But it's less of a factor, right, up there because more cash buyers than, and they're less concerned with, well, what's the interest rate, going to be if I buy this second home or mountain home.
I've seen some really interesting things too, as people were trying to get into a property, younger people or move up people trying to get into a property, then the rates were still high and making it difficult to get in. Many of the sellers have figured out a way to help them. Like they'll say, I'll carry a bit of this for 5 years or 4 years. Help them.
So Carrie, or owner Carrie, is great. Not to be confused with Carrie, the owner. Hi, Carrie.
We are seeing more creative financing options overall. So when we were talking about that transition buyer-seller situation where they have to sell before they buy, we are seeing more of those sellers having a discussion about, well, maybe we take all that equity that you have in your home and we use it as a home equity line of credit. So you can purchase your new property outright with that home equity line of credit. And then when we sell that home, obviously you pay off that home equity line of credit at that time. So it takes a lot of the stress off as far as trying to have the home sold before you can buy. And well, what if I sell and then my replacement property isn't, I don't find the one. So it gives a lot more fluidity to that home buyer, home seller situation. So obviously there's some caveats. You do need to talk with your lender, make sure that program is available to you, talk with your realtor. Some strategize that does make sense, and others it doesn't make sense. So it's just a conversation to have nowadays. We have more options.
Well, and I know there were a lot of people, whether it's up in Vail or down here on the Front Range, that really didn't want to live where they lived, but they couldn't find anything else. And now having that additional inventory gives them those choices, so they can start looking and make that move to maybe where they really wanted to live. And of course, there were lots of people who bought during COVID and got whatever they could get, and now they have options to now look at something else. And is it 2 years you have to stay in your home before there are some of the financial consequences of it before you can sell? And we're about that point right now, so for a lot of people. So if they want to look for their new home where they really wanted to live, maybe this is a good time as well, right, Carrie?
Absolutely. And obviously we would want you to talk with your financial advisor and your accountant on making any moves and timelines. But life does happen. So, if you need to make a transition before that 2-year mark that Rick speaks of, life does happen. And so people do make that move in less of a time, whether it's a transfer, job situation, life expanding, family expanding. So there are those different scenarios as well. So, life happens, and, that's part of the real estate market. And so that's why we're always having people buy and sell houses. And, these sellers that are like, oh, well, maybe I should wait till spring to put my home on the market. Well, people that are buying now are pretty motivated to buy. And then there's a lot of transferee situations that happen during this time. They usually have a start date of January, so those buyers are pretty motivated as well. So, like I say, you can't sell the house if it's not on the market.
Yeah, and I know there are a lot of people who are looking to, as you say, buy, not shop, because they've got to find something. And the kids, they got to get them into their schools right now, and so they're more motivated. And I imagine if interest rates stay where they are coming up next spring, and I'm just spitballing, that we're probably going to have a whole lot more inventory come spring. So you're going to have a lot more competition. So you have less competition right now if you're looking to either buy, if you're looking to sell, and if you're looking to buy, you still got plenty of competition and plenty of homes out there, right?
Well, and one thing I would caution home buyers, even though we do have more inventory now, sometimes I see buyers kind of get stuck in a, well, I'm going to keep shopping mode. Something better might come on the market. That can be very paralyzing. So I think it's important. I like to equate it to, if you see a home that you like and you could see yourself living there, and if I called you the next day and said, oh shucks, that home is under contract and it's sold, if you would be disappointed to hear that, it's time to make an offer. Mm-hmm. It's time to get off the fence, because you will paralyze yourself if you just keep waiting and thinking something else is going to come on the market.
Diana, do you have a lot of people moving in Vail with... What was that? Sorry.
So true. I think that's so true, Carrie. You see people like buyers that can't quite decide, but they should have decided. And if you work with them and you say, okay, what are your actual goals? If we find a property that meet those goals, can we make the offer?
Exactly. Yeah. So it's, do you find people moving in, up and down Valley, that they bought a home in Vail, and then they've decided they want to go to Beaver Creek or someplace else, or do they pretty much, once they buy, they're in their property there in the Valley?
There's a lot of movement.
Okay.
And there's a lot of movement for many reasons. For instance, if they bought something in Vail and they had a lot of years ago and they have a lot of equity, and then it's time to look at a smaller property. Maybe they're retiring, maybe they just don't have so many kids there yet now. So yeah, they'll move down Valley.
Okay.
And that makes a great move. If you have equity here, then you can use that equity there.
Well, awesome. Sounds like it's a great time to sell, and we're really, or buy. We're really in a balanced market. And of course, balance, as Carrie says, is 3 months, but to me, balance means I don't have to make a decision yesterday or based on the website, and which is what was going on. You can think about it at least for a day, unless it's one of those really hot properties there at the base in Vail, and then maybe you need to act as soon as you see it.
Well, and Rick, I would say that's true for any market. That's why you really have to count on your realtor and know that you're working with an experienced agent, because even here in northern Colorado, there are those properties that, if they're priced right, they're in good condition, if they have that little extra something, your realtor will help guide you and provide you that information that this one's going to move quickly. So yes, definitely be confident and comfortable in your decision, but don't dilly-dally.
Yeah. Yeah, because
that's really true.
You're finding that up there too, right?
We are. The one thing that's really great too is we have not had 6 months of inventory in a very long time. And now we have 6 months of inventory, so that gives you time to take a breath, but make your goals. And then when you find something that fits what you want, you'll know it because you've looked at the market, and then you'll be able to jump into it.
So I believe the definition of 6 month inventory is based on the number of listings on the market, and you divide that by what's essentially selling each month. That tells you what. So if you put it on today and nothing else came back on the market, you would hopefully sell within that 6 month period, correct?
Yeah, I don't think it's quite. I mean, there's really definitely not 6 months of days on the market. That's not what it is.
No, it's not 6 months days on the market, but it's 6 months inventory based on the number of
Right.
sales. So a lot of times you and I we all talk about all these different terms, and sometimes our audience may not know those terms. So it's always good to get people up to speed on those as well.
We'd love to hear some questions from the audience too.
Absolutely.
So if they have questions on any of those acronyms or want further clarification, definitely let us know, and we'd love to field those.
Yeah, those are good for you to call Carrie or Diana and say, okay, you said this. What does that mean, and how does that work?
Exactly.
So that's awesome. On this rental report, we're talking with Greg Machle from Real Property Management about the benefits of renting a single-family home versus a condo or townhome. Hi, Greg.
Hey, Rick, how are you?
I'm doing great. So tell me, what are some of the benefits of a single-family home?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the components that we see, and we see this actually very, very often. Obviously, when you're talking about a single family home, the biggest thing that people enjoy the most is the fact that it's got some kind of a yard. That's good for pets. That's good for kids. That's good for barbecuing on the back. There's just more options that go along with that. In addition, there's also more options when you're having friends over for a Super Bowl party to watch a Sunday afternoon football game, whatever the case may be. There's room in a driveway to park. There's room on the front area, your front street side to be able to park, etc. So there's absolutely value with that. Then the other component is when it's not a townhome or a condo, you're not sharing a wall with somebody and or you have somebody below or above you. You just have your own fixed home that you are renting, and it is separate from anything else that you're renting. So it offers a bit more noise protection, privacy, any combination thereof.
And do you find on a per square foot basis that the rent is higher with a single family home, or does it depend on where?
Yeah, it does depend on where. And so, and a lot of it depends on how big the home is, how many bedrooms the home is. Was it actually designed to be a rental property? We have been taking on other properties that were homes that weren't necessarily designed to be a rental property, but these landlords have ended up in that place. And so we are helping with that. But these are homes that are 5,000 and 6,000 square feet. It was probably designed to be a sell, but couldn't quite sell the price point that made sense. So they're renting it for now.
But it would seem like the rental rates for single family homes are probably coming down a little bit as we get more inventory on the sales side for people who just have to, offset their mortgage payments and might just put it up for sale for a year. Sure. Up for rent for a year or so, correct?
Yes, and we are absolutely seeing that. That is a very real factor. We're watching that day in and day out, and there are a number of folks that are in that exact scenario that you just described. We're just helping them execute upon it.
Well, sounds great. If you have a home that you're looking to rent out, give Greg a call or have one of his team. You can reach him here on the number on the screen. And in addition to that, if you're looking to rent, you should also talk to Greg. And I think next week we should do the flip side and talk about condos and townhomes and the advantages of them versus a single family home. What do you say?
Perfect. Well, we will gladly talk through that.
All right. Sounds good. See you next week. So obviously getting to the finish line, there are a number of elements you need to do in order to look at things and get to the closing. And if you're selling, there's what's called a lead paint disclosure. Carrie, how does that work?
So typically we say 1978, the disclosure says 1978 and older homes, we have to provide the lead-based paint disclosure. I typically do it 1979 and earlier. And what that says is if the seller has knowledge that there's been lead-based paint in the property, exterior, interior, etc., they'd need to disclose that to the buyer so they can do their own due diligence should they choose to. So it's really, lead-based paint is obviously a chemical that is harmful to inhabitants of the property. So either that needs to be disclosed, mitigated, etc. So it's a disclosure that's important to both the buyer and seller.
Do you find that a lot up there in the Vail Valley?
Yes, we have the same criteria, 1978 and older, and we definitely we use the same disclosures that Carrie has.
So,
And it's very important to have.
so if I've painted my house, but I didn't scrape the paint, say 5 years ago, and how does it work? Do I know that I have lead paint? How does that work? I don't understand.
Well, a chip of paint can be tested. And so it's one of those things. Some contractors now, even before they do work on some of these older homes, will require verification that there isn't lead-based paint. If they don't have that verification, they're going to take all those extra steps in order to protect the home, protect the occupants, and make sure that none of those contaminants get in the house that could be ingested by any of the inhabitants. And of course, that's an expensive process. Mm-hmm. So that's why we have the disclosures, so people can be confident and comfortable that either A, it's been mitigated, or B, there's no knowledge and they can test for it themselves, or they can, cross that bridge down the road when they get to that, if they should choose to make any changes or modifications in the structure where that could come into play.
Diana, do you encourage your buyers to have that tested if it hasn't been disclosed, if it's an older property, or how does that work?
What I do is I give them a disclosure. We discussed it. Many layers of paint have been on many of these properties, so having it flake off would be probably not going to happen. But you're right, Carrie, as far as if there's a remodel that's going to be happening, that's going to disturb anything that, and really actually lead-based paint is in the tiles a lot here. Mm. So floor tiles, ceiling tiles, more, and then it's in the drywall. So in those older properties, it's great to take a chip and have it tested.
Okay. And
a lot of times, Rick, seller they might not have had it tested. They frankly, it's not that they are, they just might not know if it's in there. It might not have been as an important discussion with their realtor when they bought. So it's just one of those things. Everybody has their different levels of comfort. That's the same thing with asbestos. Now, we don't have an asbestos disclosure, but in some of those older homes, maybe they have that popcorn ceiling that's got the sparkly in it. It's those opportunities that we have as realtors to have those discussions with our clients and let them know that, you want to be mindful of this. You want to do your due diligence as part of the inspection process. So it's really important, again, to have that realtor, especially in today's market. People think, oh, I don't need a buyer's agent. You need it now more than ever. We're here to give you the information. You don't know what you don't know.
Interesting. Yeah. And so.
Yeah, the asbestos.
Yeah.
And that, you're right, Carrie. That's exactly what people don't know, because they've had the properties that's been sold off and over and over and over again, and they would not know, possibly,
And you're absolutely right, Diana. It's not just in the paint. It can be in floor tiles. It can be in ceiling tiles. There are so many different variables in homes, and that's why it's so important to work with an experienced agent that has that background and knowledge to help you through this process to make sure you get a great investment property.
Exactly.
And one of the other disclosures you need to do is the square footage disclosure. And since I really don't know anything about this, I'm just going to open it up to these two to talk about. Diana, why don't you start?
Okay. The square footage disclosure is, you can go many ways. You can have it, you can have an appraiser come in, and on the very high end properties, many people will have an appraiser come in and measure it themselves. then they have a specific way, and they put that on the disclosure. You have to actually put on this disclosure where you got this square footage number. So probably 90% of the time, people are using the square footage number from the Eagle County website, because that has that. And that's certainly fine to use, because you're telling people where that number came from. Or you have your appraiser do it. Or if the seller says, I'm telling you this is what the square footage is, you can actually write down this square footage number came from the seller. At least that's a disclosure for the buyer, so they know what they're walking into as far as the size of the property.
Here in Northern Colorado, we typically, I personally, now other realtors locally might do this, but I typically don't take the seller's word. If they have a prior appraisal, if they have building plans, if they have something that they can provide me so I can see that that has been verified by a third party. If not, I'm going to go ahead and utilize the Larimer County website, where it does indicate, like Diana was saying, where it does indicate the square footage of the property. And that's how they tax you. So they do have that information in their quiver. So I typically prefer to utilize something where a third party has verified it. Sometimes though, when I go to a property and maybe they've enclosed a back patio, or they've done an addition that is not necessarily reflective of the current square footage of the property, that wasn't in, perhaps it was in the county records and hasn't been updated. At that time, I will typically have the square footage measured on the property, the floor plans drawn. And as part of some of the great Matterport tours that you do, Rick, that square footage is included as part of that process. So the disclosure just goes on to say that it's the buyer's responsibility to do their own due diligence and confirm that that's true and accurate, if it's important to them. Otherwise, as the seller's agent, we're providing that to the best of our abilities.
And we actually, in one of the services we provide, is we have a special app that uses the LiDAR in the phone that scans the house. And we've had it compared against an appraiser who's been at the same house at the same time. And we're typically within 30 square feet of the appraiser. And unlike, unlike the Matterport, we also get the dimensions of decks and patios and swimming pools and things like that outside as well, with this new program we've been using for a couple of years now. And in fact, one of the agents, who's a Coldwell agent who doesn't she's an appraiser and an agent, she gave up on doing her own measurements, because I did a 13,000 square foot home in 20 minutes, scanned the whole house, and it came within 20 square feet of what the county had. And then she ended up with a whole floor plan with all the room measurements as well. So there are new tools out there, and we give what's called a GLA, or gross living area report, which will actually show each room, and it shows every pixel that the phone scanned, and then it'll show on the layout what it counted towards square footage and what it didn't count towards square footage. Because if the ceiling height is below 7 square feet, you as agent may go, well, that's finished square feet. Well, an appraiser wouldn't count that because it's below a ceiling height. And so it's pretty sophisticated. And the only time I've ever had a buyer call me was from one of the Crested Butte listings, where, like up in Vail, the cost per square foot is so high, and it was different from what the county was saying, but the agent used our system, and the buyer actually wanted to know how it calculated it. And he was satisfied by the time we got done talking. I go, by the way, I'm a photographer, not an appraiser. You need to don't blame me. I use this as a tool to help verify more than anything that the county records are accurate. But it's a good tool to have for agents with their sellers as well, to at least verify against the county.
Rick, this does not surprise me. This does not surprise me that Rockin Media is at the cutting edge and staying abreast of all that great tools, resources, and information for our clients. Thank you.
Well, it just helps everybody feel comfortable, or if they've enclosed a space or finished off a space and maybe didn't permit it properly, so the county may not know where it is, but it's still finished. And so, they didn't do anything that except put carpet down, and so originally it wasn't calculated into the square footage, and they can see whether it's calculated in or added in or not based on our report that is given from this program. So it's a good advantage for agents to have, and then the homeowners to have as well. Both sides. When you buy it, now you've got a report as well when you go to sell. So that helps as well. So anything else on property disclosures that's important?
I just think that is a tremendous service that we can pull from you up into our mountain areas, because we don't really have it that dialed in. And I think it's a fabulous thing to be able to offer to your sellers and to buyers. Yeah.
Well, I think a lot of what I notice a lot are people talking about, they do talk a lot, even down in the valley. I hear buyers and sellers talking about the price per square foot. And obviously, if you're missing sections or the county is missing sections, your price per square foot is going to be different. And the other thing, too, on square footage disclosure, it's finished and unfinished or above grade and below grade, right, Carrie?
Absolutely. So on that disclosure, I prefer to put whether it's total square footage. I typically go for total square footage. The one caveat we need to be careful of, sometimes in the public records with the county, it includes the garage.
Right.
So we need to be looking at these numbers, seeing if they really line up and make sense for that particular property, above grade and below grade, as you say. When you're looking at price per square footage, it's not necessarily, at least here in Northern Colorado, it's not necessarily an equal value to above grade and below grade. So there's a lot of variables to consider.
Yeah, I find that my house is half the size on the county records because they're only it's a walkout, but they're only counting the upper part of my house, and the whole basement except for one little part is unfinished or is finished, and it's still not counted toward square footage. But I assume if I go to sell, Carrie or Diana would say you need to count that as finished square footage. So,
yes.
So is that the same?
Right. I did not know that. You're right, Carrie. There are different cities, per different counties. They're going to have ways that their square footages are calculated that are going to be different.
It's good to keep that in mind. And if you're buying, make sure you're working with an agent who can interpret a lot of that information so that they can say, oh, the garage was counted toward that square footage. So they think that, so your price per square foot is much higher if you take the garage out in that regard. And they would be able to help you with that to determine whether it should have been counted and whether the pricing is correct on this house that you're looking to buy as well. Correct?
The garage is never counted in Eagle County, in our valley, which is very interesting.
So like every week, we have Nancy Alexander to talk mortgages and give us her advice on the best way to proceed. Hi, Nancy.
Hey, Rick. How are you?
I'm doing great. So last week we talked FHA mortgages. This week we're going to talk conventional. So why would I go conventional versus FHA?
Conventional. So conventional has a lot, it's a great question, has a lot of the same standards in the sense of you can come in on conventional at 3% down as your minimum down if you can say that you're a first-time home buyer. And that just simply means you haven't had a mortgage for the last 3 years in your name. Only one of the buyers has to be that first-time home buyer on conventional or fill that slot for the 3% down. So when you compare that to FHA, that's 3.5% down. Mortgage insurance is going to be more on the conventional, on the 3% down than FHA. So hence you're going to flip that coin back and forth. But the main difference, Rick, is that conventional, you can get rid of the mortgage insurance once you've obtained that goal of having 20% or greater equity in your home.
Whereas an FHA, you can't. You always have the MIP.
Yeah, FHA, you've got the MIP, right? You've got the mortgage insurance premium. So remember, you guys, let me back up. In calculating a loan for FHA, you're going to take your base or your purchase price, let's say 100,000, right? Minus your 3.5%, you come up with your base loan amount. Then onto that base, you're going to add 1.75% and come up with your final loan amount, because that's what FHA charges you to use their product, right? And conventional, you don't have that. You take your 100,000 minus your 3%. That's your loan amount. So you're financing less with the conventional than what you are with the FHA because of that MIP, that mortgage insurance premium. Then the mortgage insurance, Rick, you and I have talked about that, right? Well, every time a president comes in, they tend to change that mortgage insurance, that monthly mortgage insurance that you pay as well. It's right now down to 0.55 on an FHA. It can go much lower than that on a conventional, depending on your credit scores.
So if I'm looking at, say, 5.5 interest rate on a conventional, or 6 on a, is it 6, or did I just do that backwards? You're paying more.
Flip that, because like conventional right now would be sitting at 6, FHA would be the 5.5. So the advantage, again, you flip the coin and go, FHA has the lower interest rate, but it has the higher loan amount and can have the higher mortgage insurance. And the mortgage insurance, we say, is for the life of the loan. They'll start to peel it off after your 7th year if in fact you're in the loan.
Okay, but if you're conventional, and let's just say you have a 20% down, then you save that MIP immediately. And
yeah, there is no monthly mortgage insurance at the 20% down. You're right.
Okay, and is there more flexibility on the amount you can get a mortgage for on a conventional versus FHA?
Again, depending on your county, because
Sure.
you and I have talked about that, right? You know, is it Jefferson County? Is it Douglas County, Denver County, Arapahoe County, El Paso County, Boulder County? That really is what your loan amount is based on, be it conventional or FHA. I think the biggest thing is your credit scoring difference between the two. FHA will give you the same interest rate if your credit score is 620, 640, 660, 680. That's not the case with conventional. The better your credit score is with conventional, the better your interest rate is. But if you're sitting at that 620, that 640, you may want to look at the FHA to get started and then get into your conventional as you progress in your owning of real estate.
And if you, let's just say the cap is 700,000 hypothetically for either of them,
right,
and the house you're looking at, you need a $800,000 mortgage. Do you then have to go jumbo, or where do you go from there?
You do. You go jumbo, which really, and that's a great point, which really follows Fannie and Freddie guidelines, more Fannie than what they do Freddie. But yes, jumbo, you get into jumbo money, and then your set of guidelines, your underwriting guidelines, are very different for each one of these programs, and that comes into your decision with your loan officer as well, is do you fit the underwriting guidelines? Conforming, conventional is the easiest for underwriting. Right? If you're a W-2 employee, you're just going to provide your W-2 and your pay stubs, no tax returns. Jumbo money, it's tax returns, right? And FHA, maybe tax returns. FHA has different ways to look at underwriting for income than what conventional does, than what jumbo does. So yeah, great. You know, you and I always have these great discussions.
So I think we should go to the next one next week and talk VA. How about that?
Oh, very cool. I love VAs.
All right. Well, great. If you have questions about either conventional or FHA, feel free to reach out to Nancy at the number on the screen. And as always, thanks for joining us, Nancy, and look forward to seeing you next week. Well, this has been a great discussion, and I appreciate both Diana for joining us for the first time and Carrie for joining us as She has in many times. This is our 13th episode, I believe, so we're chugging right along. It's been great. If you want to get a hold of them, you can do so by reaching them at the numbers on the screen. And we look forward to seeing both of you again next week. And if you want to watch some of our previous episodes, go to theproshow.com, or you can check them out on any of the places you get your podcasts like Spotify or Apple Podcasts, and you can listen to it. Or if you want to watch it on YouTube, you can go to theproshow.com, and there's a link there that'll take you to see all of our various episodes where we talk about all this stuff with these great professional real estate agents. And once again, look forward to seeing you again next week.